to join everyone this morning. Good morning, everyone. Hare Krishna, my obeisances to all of you, and so happy to be able to hear and share from Srimad Bhagavatam. And I just wanted to mention, prior to beginning the class today, that I've just been really appreciating all of the classes that are being shared at the Bhakti Center. I'm trying as much as possible to tune in through YouTube, and it's just been very, very nourishing to hear just, the nature of the exchanges that are going on here. We're hearing Krishna's pastimes, but also when the question and answer comes, it's just such a mood of loving exchange. I think of the 6 loving exchanges, revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. And, that mood is really there in a very powerful way here in these morning classes. It's just so enlivening to hear. And I was talking with a friend recently about how during this pandemic time, there's so much that we're missing in terms of community. And to be able to have these very honest personal exchanges in this virtual space is really beautiful. So all glories to everyone who's been facilitating this. Okay. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 1, text number 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kasman Mukundo Bhagavan Piturgehad Vrajam Gataha Kvavasam Yatibihi Sardam Kritavan Sattvatam Patihi. Okay, so we can read the synonyms. Kasmat, why? Mukundaha, Krishna, who can award liberation to everyone. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pituhu, of his father, Vasudev. Gehat, from the house. Vrajam, to Vrajdam, Vrajabhumi. Gataha, went. Kva, where. Vasam, placed himself to live. Yatibihi, his relatives. Sardam, with. Kritavan, did so. Sattvatam Patihi, the master of all Vaishnava devotees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Why did Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leave the house of his father, Vasudev, and transfer himself to the house of Nanda in Vrindavan? Where did the Lord, the master of the Yadu dynasty, live with his relatives in Vrindavan? Purport. These are inquiries about the itinerary of Krishna. Just after his birth in the house of Vasudev in Mathura, Krishna transferred himself to Gokula on the other side of the Yamuna, and after some days, he moved with his father, mother, and other relatives to Nandagram, Vrindavan. Maharaj Parikshit was very much eager to hear about Krishna's activities in Vrindavan. This entire canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is full of activities performed in Vrindavan and Dwarka. The first 40 chapters describe Krishna's Vrindavan affairs, and the next 50 describe Krishna's activities in Dwarka. Maharaj Parikshit, to fulfill his desire to hear about Krishna, requested Shukadev Goswami to describe these activities in full detail. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sahagana Raganatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so before we begin, also I'd like to just sincerely request everyone's blessings, everyone's well wishes for this morning's class, that we can have an uplifting discourse. And I always appreciate so much what Adipurusha Prabhu shares, that what I speak will not just be my own speculation, that I can speak from what I've heard from the acharyas, from my spiritual master, from Srila Prabhupada, and that it's in line with the Shastra. So in this verse, Maharaj Parikshit is just beginning his inquiry about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it's such a unique scene. We have this great king who has now come to find that he has only a few days left on this earth. And because he is a great devotee, he is casting aside all of his material affairs. He's casting aside, not that Maharaj Parikshit actually, as a pure king, he never had really material affairs. He's doing everything in service of Krishna and for the ultimate upliftment of the citizens. Imagine such a king as this, who's actually invested in the self-realization, in the Krishna consciousness of the citizens. But he's casting aside his administrative duties, we can say, and he's casting aside his identity as a king. And he's simply sitting with Shukadev Goswami and hearing and inquiring and absorbing himself in this katha. And now we have reached the 10th canto, where the activities, qualities of Sri Krishna are being discussed in great detail and directly. So when Maharaj Parikshit begins to hear from Shukadev Goswami, his suffering is alleviated. His anxiety is completely soothed. And even, he is fasting. He's fasting. And even the hunger from his fasting, he forgets. He no longer feels that acute hunger. And he actually experiences nectar. Sutta Goswami is recounting this exchange that's happening between Maharaj Parikshit and Shukadev Goswami, and he states, then he, Shukadev Goswami, began to discourse on topics concerning Krishna, which are the remedy for all sufferings in this age of Kali. So Maharaj Parikshit, his sufferings are alleviated despite these very intense circumstances of being in the final days of his life, knowing that he's in the final days of his life, being hungry from fasting. His suffering is alleviated. And similarly, when we inquire about Krishna from advanced devotees, on some level, we are also seeking relief from our suffering, from the very feverish experience that we can have in this material world. And, I'm sure in our own ways, we've all experienced this, just that feeling of like the sun is beating down on us sometimes. It's just so blistering, life in this material world. And so many impressions, so much always going on. It's very exhausting. Even, I can say for myself, I still have so many material attachments. But we do reach that saturation point, at least from time to time, when we feel like, oh my goodness, what is this all about? Life in this world. It's just so intense and can be so brutal. So surely, when we're inquiring about Krishna, we are on some level saying, please help me to experience some relief. And also not only relief, right? It's not only the absence of the negative, but it's the presence of the positive. Allow me to taste this nectar, experience the joy, the ecstasy, the connection to my real nature. And to remember Krishna, the Supreme Beloved, to remember my constitutional position as his eternal servant. So in this way, we understand that even the most advanced devotees, they never ever tire of hearing about Krishna. In fact, their taste just increases more and more. So there's never a point where we say, okay, my suffering is alleviated and therefore I no longer have to hear the pastimes of Krishna. It doesn't work in that way, because one who has developed detachment from the material world still tastes, infinite joy and ecstasy and nectar in these pastimes. So there's never a point where we graduate from hearing about Krishna. In fact, it gets deeper and deeper. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the beginning, his commentary, a summary of chapter 1 of the 10th canto. He states, hearing of Krishna Lila is the boat by which to achieve the ultimate goal of life. So this is the boat that is carrying us through these tumultuous waters of life in this material world, that by developing some attachment to pastimes of Krishna, then we're remembering who we truly are. And also because Krishna is the all attractive, then by hearing about these activities, naturally we become attracted. But at the same time, we have to be receptive. We have to open our, not only our ears, but our heart to these pastimes. And we will gradually become more and more attracted. And sometimes we can think like, if we're not hearing, it doesn't, on some level, of course, we'll benefit even passively hearing these pastimes. But we try our very best to remain receptive, to be open. Otherwise, it's like if someone brings us to a beautiful place and we're reading a magazine or something like that, we won't be able to appreciate very much, no matter how beautiful the place is. So Krishna's pastimes, as beautiful as they may be, we also strive to hear. Srila Prabhupada recommends for us to hear submissively. So also learning about someone in detail brings relationship. Even if we hear about an ordinary person, and we learn more and more about them. The more we hear about them, the more we feel that we have some kind of connection to them. We may relate, we may understand certain things about them that we didn't know before. So what to speak of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that, hearing about him brings relationship. We understand so much about all of his different facets, like facets of a gem. We understand about all of his different qualities. And if we're attracted to certain qualities or certain mood that we see in Krishna's pastime, we can connect with that more and more. It's so variegated. We hear about Krishna's great strength defeating all of the demons. We hear about Krishna's sweetness with the cowherd women of Braj, that he's just their darling boy. We hear about Krishna's adventurous, fun nature with the cowherd boys. And of course, we hear about his incredible loving affairs with the cowherd damsels of Braj. So many facets to these pastimes. And this kind of relationship is not so easily established with the impersonal feature of the Lord, right? So we can't establish this kind of connection with Brahman, or as Maharaj Parikshit is mentioning earlier in this chapter, he's stating about Paramatma or Virat Rupa. These are aspects of Krishna, the individualized portion of Krishna within each of us, and also the Virat Rupa, the universal form. So we can hear about these different aspects of Krishna, and of course they are part of him. So they are very, very dear, and they are significant aspects of the Supreme. But ultimately, if we don't have this picture of Krishna, the personality, the Supreme Personality, then it's an incomplete understanding of the Supreme. And we miss out on the sweetness, this connection, this ability to have relationship. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, we receive such vivid detail of Krishna, and it moves beyond Aishwarya. It allows us to move also beyond awe and reverence. Now, of course, awe and reverence is very healthy, we can say, in our development of a connection to Krishna. We don't want to be offensive, and we also don't want to get ahead of ourselves, so to speak. So we don't necessarily want to, lose that sense of awe and reverence, especially in the early stages of, hearing about Krishna and understanding Krishna, because Krishna does inspire awe and reverence. But at the same time, as we hear more and more about Krishna, we also start to feel what an incredible personality, and our hearts are melted. One of Krishna's names is Hari, which sometimes is explained as one who steals the heart of the devotee. So as we hear more and more about Krishna, he touches our heart by these pastimes, and we begin to have some glimpses of different ways that we can feel toward Krishna beyond just awe and reverence. So in this verse, we hear that Maharaj Parikshit is inquiring about Krishna's relatives. So who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that the Supreme Lord has relatives and has these relationships? And in a certain way, we can understand that for us, we have relatives, we have friendships, we have connections. So how can we have something that the Supreme Lord does not have? How can we have loving affairs and loving connections to people, but the Supreme Lord does not have loving affairs, loving connections? So he's the ultimate. His loving affairs are purely transcendental, above and beyond, and any loving connections and relationships that we see in this world are just emanating. They're minuscule reflections of Krishna's loving relationships. So we hear about Krishna's relatives. So now by hearing about his relatives, we can automatically understand that Krishna desires loving exchanges. And he has his potency of yoga maya. even that we hear about, particularly, in his personal pastimes. He has instances in which those who are with him, they are not cognizant, they're not actively aware of his position as the supreme, because sometimes this may kind of put a damper on some of the sweetness. It will move very quickly from these sweet interactions to, oh my Lord, and it's just a very different mood. And we see one very sweet, special example is when Krishna is eating clay. He's eating dirt in Braj. He's playing with his friends. He's a very young boy in this pastime, and the cowherd boys, Balaram and the other cowherd boys, they tell on him to Mother Yashoda. They say, Krishna's so naughty, he's been eating dirt. And Mother Yashoda goes to him, asks him to open his mouth. She says, go ahead, open your mouth. And Krishna is at first resisting, keeping his mouth closed. Finally, he opens his mouth, and within his mouth, Mother Yashoda glimpses the entire creation, all of the universes, the whole cosmic manifestation. And she even sees herself holding Krishna, taking care of Krishna, breastfeeding Krishna. She sees their intimate connection amid the whole cosmic manifestation. And that's all within the mouth of this tiny boy, Krishna. So she has this experience, but our acharyas explain that after that experience, Krishna also allows her to sort of forget that, to kind of shake it off. Oh, no, that was interesting. And then she kind of moves right back into her mood of, Krishna needs my help. Krishna is a helpless young boy, and he needs my help. I need to cook for him. I need to feed him. I need to take care of him. So Krishna wants these relationships to remain intact. And so that Yogamaya feature is there. And Krishna also doesn't necessarily like to remember all the time that he is the supreme. Of course, he's fully aware of everything, anything and everything. But in these pastimes, he likes to be sometimes overtaken by his loving devotees, by their love. Of course, one of the most famous examples of this is in the Damodar Leela, when Krishna allows himself to be bound by Mother Yashoda. So in hearing Krishna's pastimes, we are coming to know him more and more, and to love him. And to love him is natural. He's the all attractive. So simultaneously, we're coming to love Krishna by hearing these pastimes from pure sources, from Srimad Bhagavatam, from advanced devotees. And we're also becoming purified. So Shukadev Goswami says, like the waters of the Ganges, descriptions of the activities of Krishna can purify the entire universe. The speaker, the inquirer, and the audience all become purified. So we're becoming purified, even if we don't necessarily, sometimes our conditioning prevents us from feeling that attraction right away. But Srila Rupa Goswami, in Nectar of Instruction, text number 7, there's a verse, Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pito Patapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintvadharad Anudinam Kalusaiva Justa Swadvikramad Bhavati Tadgaramu Lahantri. So he states the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna are all transcendentally sweet, just like sugar candy. And although one who's afflicted with the jaundice of ignorance cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by hearing these sweet names each day, his disease condition is gradually destroyed at the root. So in this way, the only solution to a lack of taste is more chanting, more hearing, more connection to these beautiful pastimes. And in this way, we have this example that one of the traditional remedies for jaundice, which creates a bitter taste in the mouth, one of the traditional remedies is sugar candy, And at first, because that bitter taste is there within the mouth, it's nothing to do with the sugar. The sugar is perfectly sweet, but our own taste is sometimes tinged with this bitterness. But by engaging more and more, we're being cured, we're being purified. So this is a very encouraging point that we received from Srila Rupa Goswami. So by hearing these pastimes, even if, due to some conditioning, I mean, I can speak for myself, sometimes it's just hard to feel connected, where our mind may be scattered, or we may feel more enthusiastic about some other, mundane topic, subject matter. But if we just allow ourselves to be open, to be receptive, to really hear, and also to hear the enthusiasm of the devotees who are reciting these pastimes. That's one of the most wonderful things, that we can pick up on that. If we don't have our own enthusiasm, if we're not in contact with our own enthusiasm, we can hear how much the devotees who are sharing these pastimes, how much they are relishing. And by their relishing, we can get a little glimpse, and we can just appreciate. It's an infectious sort of enthusiasm from advanced devotees when we see how much they are relishing and feeling the sweetness of these pastimes. So that's the mercy of the Vaishnavas, that they are allowing us to experience through them the sweetness of these pastimes. So of course, in this verse, Maharaj Parikshit is making inquiry. He's inquiring. And service and inquiry are the most important aspects, as we hear in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So service and inquiry. And sincere inquiry is a service also, because we're opening up these wonderful nectarian discussions of Krishna's pastimes. And so these are essential aspects toward building a connection with the spiritual master: service and inquiry. So Maharaj Parikshit is a wonderful exemplar, incredible exemplar of sincere inquiry. He has humility. He's not attached to his status as a king. He has urgency, right? That he's in his final days. I need to hear this. This is all I want to do. He has enthusiasm and eagerness to hear, and also receptivity, right? Because no matter how strong a seed is, if the soil is not fertile, then there's not so much that can sprout. So Maharaj Parikshit is exemplifying this genuine receptivity. So just as Maharaj Parikshit, his time is short, we can say also, in the grand scheme of things, our time is also quite short. And it's important to remember this so that we can strive to hear, with what little time we have, knowing that we want to be with Krishna ultimately, that we want to be with Krishna, that we want to connect with the reality of these pastimes. This world is not a reality. It may feel sometimes more tangible to us, but this is not reality. The real deepest reality is in these pastimes. So Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam, right? That one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving his body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So this is our purification, and it's the end, it's the means and the end, we can say. Just as chanting is the means and the end, right? We don't graduate from this. In many ways, this is the goal. It already is the goal. Just by hearing, we're trying to purify our own consciousness so that we can receive what's already been given. So this is the glory of, in this verse, hearing Maharaj Parikshit's sincere inquiry. And we pray that our own attraction to Krishna's pastimes can increase, and we can develop this same urgency as exemplified by Maharaj Parikshit. So I will stop here. I'd like to thank you all so much, and eager to hear everyone's reflections, corrections, comments, and realizations. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Dina Bandhu Prabhu. Beautiful class. I like how you highlighted the sense of urgentness. Is that a word? So yeah, and in the grand scale of things, we don't have time, and this world isn't real. So let's invest our time here in this morning Bhagavatam class and hearing from devotees like your good self. And thank you so much. Shikshashtakam Prabhu, go ahead.
Good morning. Dina Bandhu, I like your name. It means the friend of the poor living entities, right?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, that's the meaning.
So Nirviki, I think is her name, who gave class yesterday, Nirviti. She was talking about how we can also like try to push other living entities toward Krishna. And she was saying how Rohini, even though she was mostly, she was a lot of time in Dwarka, she was always thinking of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. And so she was saying how we can also have that idea and try to have that mood of Vrindavan for all living entities. So I thought that was a pretty deep and primal aspect of Vaishnav compassion. So I was thinking, you were talking a little bit about how just by thinking of someone like even an ordinary person, one can develop an affinity or understanding about that person's position. But actually, we're all connected, correct? I mean, even though devotees are a little bit above the modes of material nature, not me. I'm completely immersed in the modes of material nature. But if you're actually a devotee, you're supposed to be above the material modes. But actually, we can have compassion upon the fallen souls by, I think, just following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas who have that compassion, and by repeating their words, churning their words in our mind, and trying to relate their behavior and words and character to, as coming from Krishna. And as it says in the Gita, Krishna says, all these living beings are in me and they're mine. I was wondering if you could, comment on that ontological, principle of how to always feel compassion, since your name is Dina Bandhu, how we can connect that in our daily lives, and how to always remember that for the pleasure of Krishna.
Thank you so much, Shikshashtakam Prabhu. And I just wanted to mention, I've just been so much appreciating your presence in these classes and your comments. And thank you. So yes. So I try to meditate upon this, of course, Dina Bandhu Das, that, it's very important to try as much as we can to be instruments of Krishna's compassion, that he is the friend to those in distress. And of course, in some form or another, we are in the material world all in distress. Like an endless assortment of distresses that we can be experiencing, but we also understand that distress is one of the four conditions, through which many people begin to inquire about the Supreme. So distress, has its distinct role in many of our spiritual paths. But what you said, Prabhu, is so beautiful about, having this compassion and understanding that we're all connected, and ultimately that we're all connected through Krishna, that we're all parts and parcels of Krishna. So something that, I have, personally strived to do as much as I can is, in interfacing with people, in connecting with people under whatever circumstance, trying to remember, not that I have this realization, not that I really have this realization in a developed way, but just even theoretically try to remember that this person is part and parcel of Krishna, that this person is so dear to Krishna. And it's kind of like, just like if you're speaking to someone and thinking ill of them while you're speaking to them, even if you're trying to be nice to them, person can kind of pick up on it. They can probably feel, some kind of energy, from you if you don't like them, if you don't think much of them. Similarly, my prayer is that, when we connect to people with this kind of outlook, whether or not that realization has actually sprouted, in my own case, but just when we're approaching people in this mood and trying to see what qualities within them, are so dear to Krishna, whether someone's inquisitive, whether someone is just really honest and sincere, even if it comes across in kind of an, intense way, if someone is loving and caring toward others, if someone, is just really needing love and comfort and support in this world, because that's also the heart's yearning for Krishna. It's a sign of the heart's yearning for Krishna. If someone has humor, that's also coming from Krishna. All of these different qualities, if we can somehow try to see everyone in this way, even theoretically, the prayer is that somehow they'll feel that, and they'll feel that they're part of something greater. They'll feel that they are dear to the Supreme Lord. So in this way we can, I think, try to connect, as you said, that ontological point, that maybe there are just little ways in which, in the day-to-day, that can become something actionable for us. And also that we can remember that. We can remember that about our own selves, because it's easy to become discouraged on the spiritual path. And it's not a puffed up thing. It's not a puffed up thing to say I'm part and parcel of Krishna. It's just a fact. It's our tattva. So in that way, we can just remember that, but also that holds us to we can say, to a higher standard, hopefully, that if we're feeling down, we're feeling discouraged, we can remember that we are part and parcel of Krishna, that we're dear to Krishna. And in that way, get some motivation, to carry on.
Yeah, I was thinking that what you're saying, excuse me, about just thinking of other people on a day-to-day basis and what our own relationships. But actually, when I was sometimes I would be out collecting funds for New Vrindavan, and in the morning I would be reading Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I would read a verse from his song and then chant English and then chant one round. And by the time he was so compassionate that I was just like trying to gather the words as they're coming off the page, just like Adi says in the beginning, not putting any interpretation on it, not spinning it, just read it the way it is. And then by that presentation and thinking of the compassion of the previous acharyas, I was so fired up that I did huge. It's like that's so effective in dealing with people on a person-to-person basis. And if we can churn those instructions in our mind from person to person, and even if we're not with persons, we can all think of them and think of, the mood of the acharyas. That's the best or easiest way to do it, because we have no good qualities. But that's part of my name too, it's kind of integrated in that, always ready to give respects to others. I remember, we may not have that conception that we're actually lower than everybody else, and that even if somebody's acting like a jerk, that's not who they really are, and we can actually understand that. I remember hearing about a meeting that was going on in Vrindavan. Everybody in the meeting was condemning a certain devotee. And my spiritual master said, nah, it's not that bad. And so, he had a deeper understanding of who this person was. So we should all, and sometimes in Kirtan, we also feel like, wow, these devotees are, I don't even know who they are. They have such a deep understanding. They have such a long connection with Krishna. Who knows who they are? I better be careful. And, there's, like you said, if you have an attitude about somebody, people pick it up. And not only that, Krishna picks it up, because Krishna's in everyone's heart. And so, that is a huge impediment. I remember listening to Bhaktivedanta Goswami talking about the Srimana Shiksha, how, if you actually have just a little bit of pride or condescension in your mind when you're speaking with, oh, this person doesn't know anything, then, that's a little bit envious, that's a little bit proud. And Krishna will just immediately abandon you like he did with the gopis. So, we don't want that. So you have to really be careful about how you think about others, especially, if you think you have a little bit of a superiority complex, like the Hare Krishnas, they're marching down Fifth Avenue in Rath Yatra, they got, their sikas down to their butt, and, they got 2 different kinds of socks on, but they feel like they're the top of the world, so we can't have that attitude, like we're so beyond all these, as Yamadas Brahmachari calls them, the less intelligent fools and rascals with poor fund of knowledge, so we can't have that attitude. That's not a Vaishnava attitude. The Vaishnava attitude is humility, and it's the most important thing.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, just one small point that came to mind while you were sharing is, that this point of, we're not really above, we're recipients of mercy. We've been so fortunate to receive this mercy. So we can have all confidence because of the caliber of the mercy that we've received. It's unimaginable. But at the same time, alongside that confidence, we must have all humility, because we know that without that mercy, we would have absolutely nothing. And in the same way, we can have that confidence that we're part and parcel of Krishna, but also all humility, because everybody is. So yeah, thank you so much. I see Gail, right? Gail has her hand raised.
Hey there, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Gail. Always so nice to hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, this conversation inspired me to share a comment, something that was, really affected me. And so in that way was powerful. I once heard our relationship with Krishna characterized like this. We are each Krishna's child. And so if you remember that when you are dealing with other people, just think, how would you treat somebody's child if the parent were standing right there in front of you? It's probably a little different from if the child were off on his own by himself. You'd be very mindful about how your treatment of the child would affect the parent, and so I just found that very a very powerful way of keeping in mind how we should treat each other. Would I speak to that person in that way if I actually saw that the parent was standing right beside him or her? And that goes for ourselves too, because, we too, as you were saying before, we too are Krishna's children, and so, we should also not be abusive to ourselves, in the name of trying to, act according to the standards, of Krishna consciousness. We should also exercise compassion toward ourselves, because being abusive to ourselves is actually counterproductive, So anyway, this was what your conversation reminded me of. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you for that beautiful, beautiful comment. And I'm going to remember that we must treat the children well in the presence of the parent, because the parent is always there. Yeah, in the form of Krishna. And also, parent always has such a great plan for the child. I was just thinking about that too. Like the spiritual master, right? We have the spiritual master can sometimes be like a parent for us in a certain way, and that the parent always has this very clear idea of what will be best for the child. And it's just a matter of that journey of the child coming to really take that up, and to to be carried, by the well wishes of the loving parent.
Yeah, and one last thing I wanted to mention too is that yes, we are insignificant in terms of our power, but we are not insignificant in terms of our relationship with Krishna. Krishna sees us as very significant, because he loves us so much. So we should remember that about ourselves and everybody else too.
Wow, Gail is on fire today. Gail, thank you so much. Beautiful jewels. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Jamuna Jaya says in the chat, beautiful class. You're very dear to Krishna. Thank you for sharing the sweetness. Yes, Dina Bandhu Prabhu. See, everybody sees the sweetness in you, Krishna's sweetness. Kartik says, wonderful class. Thank you for sharing your enthusiasm. Yes, Dina Bandhu Prabhu is very enthusiastic. Athena says, thank you so much. Wonderful and sweet class as always. Hare Krishna. Andrea says, thank you, Gail. Yeah, Gail, great points.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you all so much. And just wondering, anyone has any thoughts at all? They're very open to hear. Thank you. Yeah, this is real nectar coming from Gail. Thank you so much, Gail. Can feel like just the conviction of your realizations.
Adipusha Prabhu, would you like to glorify Krishna? Who's that FBI agent?
This is my prayer that Adipusha Prabhu might share.
Well, Dr. Schick was saying something about those fools and rascals with a poor fund of knowledge, and how we're trying to share something beneficial, but it's possible to think ourselves better than them, and how that might not please Krishna. And our own attitude is that I really don't have any love for these people. I'm not that advanced. I'm not better than them. But I'm doing this as an offering to my spiritual master, and I hope I can please him. But it's not that I'm saving the conditioned souls. But I'm only trying to serve my spiritual master because he asked me to, and that's an interesting thing. And also, you mentioned this, that the process of hearing, how healing and uplifting and purifying it is. And it's a process. There are developmental stages. In the beginning stages, like you mentioned, like the jaundice bitter taste, we may not really be, feeling ecstasy and the total sweetness by hearing this. But we know that the Vaidhi Bhakti stage, my guru asked me to do this. This is my medicine I know I need healing. I know I'm crazy. I don't want to be crazy anymore. Let me take this. Let me do this, whether I feel like it or not, whether I feel ecstasy or not. And then along the line, there'll be the Bhaganu Bhakti, what do they call that? The spontaneous stage where we're actually attracted to hearing, and and we mentioned this verse the other day from the first canto, second chapter, that a person, no matter how much they work, no matter what their occupation is, it's useless if it does not provoke the attraction for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So, we're attracted to hearing because we know this pleases Krishna, and we're doing it on the instruction of the spiritual master, maybe, and that's why we're taking shelter. Oh, glory to Prabhupada.
Oh, glory to Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Adipurusha Prabhu. Thank you. Yeah, if we're developing that attraction slowly but surely, and like I love what you said, because my spiritual master asked me to. What more? It's almost like, what more do we need than that for our reasons of doing what we do in Krishna consciousness? That's everything. And I always remember that coming from you also, just that you have that spirit, everything you do with your service, because your spiritual master told you to. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dina Bandhu Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu, everybody, Gail, Shikshashtakam Prabhu, for contributing to this class. Glorifying Krishna is real. Outside the window, it's just a picture. It's not real. Even though, like Dinabandhu Prabhu says, it may seem tangible, but it's not. It's dry. There's nothing there for us. Good morning. Have a wonderful Sunday, everybody. Dinabandhu Prabhu, thank you so much. We love you. Have a wonderful wedding.
I love you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you also everyone who wrote the nice comments in the chat. Thank you so much. And yeah, looking forward to connecting with everybody very soon.
Hare Krishna. Keshava Prabhu, you look very philosophical.
Yes, Keshava. So happy to see you. Yeah.
Good to see you. And congratulations on your sister.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. The devotees' blessings are
I hope
good.
you had a very nice trip. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Long drive ahead. It will be good. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, Ananda Bihari.
Have a safe drive then. See you soon.